Welcome to this episode of Read, Burn, Hoard. This is a feature originally inspired by Books with Emily Fox's 1 Week, 1 Shelf challenge, where I'm going through my massive collection of unread books, curating my shelves one by one, deciding which ones to let go, which ones to read, and which ones to hoard for later. The ultimate goal is to be under 1,000 unread books by the end of 2025, and I'm on the right track. At the end of the last video, I had 1,145 unread books on my shelves, and starting this one out, I am at 1,144. This is definitely the first time I have ever reported on a video where the number has gone down. So I did make some purchases, but I also read a bunch from my collection. Now, they were short books, but I don't care, it counts. So we're heading in the right direction. This is kind of a new era of Read, Burn, Hoard. I used to pick a book from the shelves that I was evaluating to read each month, but I am trying to reduce the number of outstanding series that I have going, and also just trying to take it easy a little bit on my schedule because I have so many other things going on. To that end, I am compiling a list of the highest priority books from these shelves as I go. And once we get through a full cycle, when I go through the shelves the next time, then we'll be pulling from this high priority list and reading the books that way. So for the sake of, we are focusing more on the burn hoard aspect than we are the read. So I will show you an overview of my library, and then we will get started on the shelves in question for this episode. This is my collection. I have all of my unread books on these 4 stacks here, including the top shelf, and on these 4 stacks here, including the top shelf. And then the second to top shelf up here has all of the overflow stuff that I'm eventually hoping to move over here because I've been reading a whole bunch of books and have nowhere to put them. That's quite a bit of books. And over here, my high priority shelves, I've pretty much picked out all of my reading for the rest of the year, which honestly would stress me out in years past, but this year there's a comfort in not having to make any more decisions. But then I also have some overflow that I need to fit back in as well. Last month I had 2 whole shelves full of stuff to put back in. This month, I'm hoping I can get rid of enough things that this bottom shelf will disappear entirely, which will be nice. In any case, we are now on this row of shelves right here, so let's get started. Okay, my audio was kind of a mess last time, so I'm going to see if I can make it more consistent this time. In any case, starting out the shelf, I talked last time about the Disney Fairy books and how much I've enjoyed them, so I would like to keep those, obviously. And then we have part of the Spider-Rick Chronicles. This is Beyond the Spider-Rick. I really liked those initial 5 books. The movie didn't do it justice. It took out the 2 best books of the series and all of the cool stuff involved with that, and did not include any of it in the movie. But I enjoyed it enough that eventually I would like to read these. Honestly, this is kind of how I annoy myself when it comes to reading. How much further along would I be in life had I just continued reading all the Spider-Rick Chronicles when I was really into the series? Had momentum, they were really enjoyable. The only reason I didn't continue is because I had a thought in my head that I needed to save more for a rainy day. Yeah, we're not doing that anymore. But I'm keeping that, and the same author, at least one of the 2 that wrote Spider-Rick, also wrote The Search for Wandla, Tony Ditzerlisi. This is an advanced reading copy. I kept it because of author recognition, but I honestly don't know anything about it. So this is going to be a good one to look up because I have no idea if I'm going to keep it or not. So stay tuned. This is a trilogy about a girl who lives underground, cared for by a robot, and eventually goes above ground to see if she can find other humans. Now, I think the novelty factor of this one appeals to me. I like the title because I think it evokes a sense of wonder, and the ratings on Goodreads, 4.11 for the first book, which is actually kind of high for Goodreads, and then the subsequent books only get higher from there. So I think I'm going to hang on to this one, even though the only thing against it is I don't see myself picking it up anytime soon. So if I get to the end of the entire collection and still don't have enough room for everything or haven't met my goals, I'll revisit this one. But I think it would be one that I would enjoy. So we're going to keep. Okay, next up we have the Sarah Douglas Troy Games series. What initially drew me to this author was the cover art by Luis Royo, who's my favorite artist. And I think, even though like the subject matter of these books is kind of basic on the cover, I'm intrigued because we got like a kind of a modern Big Ben in the background type of vibe. And then this one is very much Grecian. But I have read quite a few of Sarah Douglas's works, like over 10 books from this author. And she's always, like, there's something slightly off about her writing to me. Or it's a bit weird, and it doesn't really sit well all the time, but it's good enough that because I have these beautiful hardcovers, I will probably hang on to this until I at least give it a try. And I haven't looked up exactly what these are about because I like to go into my series blind, but I really love the Kushiel's Dart Phaedrus trilogy and everything that Jacqueline Carey created. And while I imagine these probably aren't as carnal, I think I might like them for the same vibes and like type of story. Okay, I'm nervous about these. These are 2-in-1 compilations, and then I think book 3 in the Dark Days series by Jocelyn Drake, and I am pinning a lot of my hopes and dreams on these random urban fantasies on my shelves because I've read most of the heavy hitter authors in the genre, and I'm afraid I'm going to run out. So if I look this one up and it sounds like it's going to be a dud, I'm going to be so sad. Especially considering I've got a cool book club edition of the first 2 books. So wish me luck. I'm going to research it right now. Urban fantasies are really hard to research online. Mediocre. One 1-star review said something like, "This is what I get for buying books at Walmart." Really funny. There was nothing in here that threw me off. The description of it wasn't overly focused on the romance aspect. Obviously there's going to be one, but it was subtle enough, and the premise of it just sounds basic like everything else that I've read. It's a 6-book series. I don't think I have enough evidence to let it go, and I could see myself trying the first book in the series sometime soon for an urban fantasy project. So again, I think we're going to hang on to this one. This might be a hoarding month, but it's kind of early to tell. Next up, we have a couple of advanced copies for Mila and Mila 2.0. I have already unhauled a couple of books at this same type of book, but I do generally like the altered human YA type of books, kind of like Uglies. And I feel like these are ones that I see more often. So let me look up some reviews, see what the story's about, and we'll kind of go from there. This one sounds actually more interesting than I thought it would. I figured typical type of book in this variety, the lab-created person knows where they came from right from the beginning, and it's about them acclimating as human. This is kind of backwards. She lived a functional life as a human, but now is discovering some things about her past. It's a trilogy. I have 2 of the 3. I didn't even bother to look at the reviews because I think it's one that I would at least like to dabble in. But see, I'm having a hard time. Like, normally by this point I've gotten rid of a few things, and I don't want to get rid of things just for the sake of and make it arbitrary, but I needed to have a pep talk with myself about what my intention is for what I'm doing with this project. I don't want to keep crap that I don't think I'll pick up within the next 5 to 10 years or so, and this one's borderline, but I'm interested enough in it and I have nice enough copies that I think I'm okay hanging on to it for now. Okay, I've been hanging on to this one forever. The Young Wizards by Diane Duane. She wrote the Crestomancy Quartet, which I loved when I was a kid. It's kind of like a more wordy, less accessible version of Harry Potter, but written first. And I liked it enough that I went out and bought this one. I think it's like a 4-in-1 set, and this is the 5th book. And again, should have just continued reading everything by her when I picked her up, but I thought, oh, I'll get around to this. And, you know, it was probably back before I had over 1,000 unread books in my collection. But these are ones that I feel like as soon as I have a chance to get around to, I'm really going to enjoy the nostalgic feel. So for now, those are keeps. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm kind of struggling today. Like, it might be the shelves, but it also might be, you know, some days you are just feeling more ruthless and more willing to let things go. And other days your instinct is to hoard. This is called Sound by Alexandra Duncan. She wrote Salvage, which was a decent YA of sci-fi I read back in the day. I liked that one, but at the time, when this one came out, it wasn't a direct sequel, it was a companion novel, dealing with an entirely different set of characters, and that always pisses me off when they do that. Like, tell a continuation. I want more of what I read in the first book. I don't want a tangent. But I've held on to this one because some part of me thinks I would eventually like to continue on, but that would be a really good candidate for unhauling if I haven't touched it by the time I get around to this shelf again. Now, the good thing is I wouldn't have to reread the first book. I could just go straight into that one. Okay, next up I have Coverless Copies by Dave Duncan, Children of Chaos, Mother of Lies. I believe this is book 1 and 2. My copies don't have covers on them. There's a lengthy explanation as to why. I've researched these books a couple of times and determined that they actually do sound like a lot of fun, but I'm past the point of really wanting to hang on to coverless copies of things, so let me see if I can find these digitally, and if so, I might let them go. Near as I can tell, this is a duology, and they are both indeed available on ebook, but they want like $13 a piece for them. So if I let these go, holy cow, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg. What I find so interesting about this is that it takes place in a world where all of the epic, political, massive upheaval has already taken place, and several years later, the children are the ones who are having to deal with the fallout. So it's an unconventional premise, and I do think it's one that I would like to read. But since they have digital copies, chances are I would probably opt for a Kindle version anyway, eventually. So I think I'm okay letting go of these physical copies. I want to read it, but I don't see myself picking it up within the next 10 years or so. So I've bookmarked it. I have a really nice, nifty ebooks to consider list, and I'm just going to leave it on that. And if the mood ever takes me, I can spend $13 on a book. I've paid more for less. We have Queen of the Blood, the Tales of Renthia series, a 4-book series. I've actually read the first one. I thought it was great. I should have continued along right away. There was a little bit of element of competition. Felt like it could have been a little bit stronger, but other than that, really positive. I love this author's works. Everything I've read from her so far has been awesome. Y'all might recognize she's gotten a lot of acclaim for her Spell Shop series, but I actually love her from Race the Sands. So she's telling the types of stories that I'm excited to read about. I feel like we're of the same brainwave. So I would need to restart that one before continuing. I am definitely continuing with that series at some point. That might be a high priority one. We have Vampire Beach by Alex Duvall. I can already tell you that I'm going to get rid of this one. This kid moves to like Miami. It's very party centric, but people start showing up dead. I don't care, right? And I also looked up at some point the availability of the rest of the series. There's like 5 books. Only 2 of them are available digitally, book 1 and 3, oddly. So if I wanted to read this series, I would have to actually buy physical copies of most of them. They wouldn't even match what I have here. They've got different covers now, so I'm not even going to mark it as a potential. The years of teen vampire books, especially ones that seem really cheesy and off-brand, we're gonna let that go. Ooh, I'm gonna change it up a bit and skip ahead. David Eddings. I really enjoyed his Belgariad series. Started with this one, read Guardians of the West. This is a 3-in-1 and a 2-in-1 of the next 5-book series. And some people have told me that they're essentially just an exact repeat of the first 5 books, only not as good. And from what I read of Guardians of the West, I read the entire book, and the main character was the most whiny that I have ever come across. Like, I've heard people talk about other characters that I've loved as whiny, and honestly, maybe it was a bit of the audiobook that I did at the time, but man, he just sat around and complained all the time, and nothing ever happened in the book. It was just not very good. So not only am I getting rid of it because of an objection to the storyline, but the tiny print in this, I will never actually read these physical copies. So while they are nice, I am committed to letting them go. And that leaves me Crossroads of Canopy. Book 1 in the Titan's Forest trilogy. Immediately, my draw to this book is because of the world building that it's promising. I love stuff where flora and fauna plays a huge role, but every single last review that I had read for this book when I was looking into it, not positive, like not a very good book apparently. But let me do some research of my own and see if the story elements are strong enough to let me want to keep it and read it anyway. Apparently, this is a completed trilogy, and the concept just sounds so good. These society of 13 different god-led colonies essentially live at the very canopy of this world. There's an interesting hierarchy system explained, but a lot of people had trouble with the book, but for different reasons. Like, I could not pinpoint a strong through line on why people didn't like it. Too much sexual content, didn't really amount to anything. They didn't jive with the writing style. The reasons are all over the place. Did not find very many books, like reasons why people absolutely loved it, but you know, I'm a world building reader. It's one of my favorite things that I evaluate, and a book that is weak in other aspects will usually keep me on board if I'm interested enough in the world building. So this one's on the fence. Will I read it? I'm not sure. If I had a coverless copy or even a paperback, I probably would let it go, but the fact that I have a hardcover, I'm inclined to hang on to it for a bit longer. I am highly interested in this series. I met the author at a book signing at some point, and really nice person, but it's by Kevin Emerson, and it's about Atlantis. I have signed and personalized copies of these books. And I'm really drawn, again with the world building, I'm drawn to things in the ocean. And usually a good concept can keep me reading even if everything else is weak. I'm expecting something quite YA. Something about the vibes and the presentation of the book, I'm imagining the romance aspect won't be quite as heavy in this one. It's also a basis for its appeal. So I would like to keep that. And then I have coverless copies here of Oliver Nocturne, middle grade series about a kid who can turn into a bat, which I think is a cute concept, but I'm not sure if it's something I want to read, so let me look it up real quick. Okay, 6-book series. They are available digitally. The first one is like 50 cents on Amazon right now. So I think I'm okay letting go of these placeholders. I honestly, with all of the middle grade and young adult stuff that I have at my fingertips, I don't see myself picking that one up first, second, or even third. So I think I'm okay letting that one go. If I really love these, I can reconsider. Okay, we have paperback copies, classic covers, which I love, of the Malazan series by Steven Erikson. I'm definitely keeping these. I'm too far into it now to let it go. And actually, I am enjoying them. They're very weird. And I feel like readers love this series so much that they're very forgiving of things that, in my opinion, aren't done very well. But it's like, you're part of the cool kids club if you absolutely love this series and you have no complaints about it because you're an enlightened individual and you really get what he was trying to do. To me, I think the narrative could have been a lot more accessible and concise, but some of the cool things he does within that and how many layers there are to the story is what makes it interesting. And I do like that while there are a bazillion characters, almost every single one of them I find interesting in one way or another, and that's kind of hard to do. So I'm very appreciative of this author, but I'm also not in any hurry to give myself a headache trying to read one of them right now. I will likely get through other books. That won't fit. I will likely get through other books, another series, until I have more of a bandwidth to get to it, but I do plan on continuing at some point. Maybe I'll do a tandem read with when books that I haven't read come out from the broken binding. That could be fun. I think that's just a novella. And then Malazan is so bizarre to me that I thought, okay, what on earth would this author do with a sci-fi series? So I am very interested in this one. Apparently this is not the first book. I need to get a copy of the first book, but I will keep that as a placeholder because, yeah, I think that one would be quite good. Okay, I'm really tired of looking at these on my shelves. First of all, book 1, 2, 3, it's a completed trilogy, and they did not keep the same cover art through all of them. You can see they've got different publishing houses on here. I have absolutely no desire to pick up the series. I don't even know what it's about. So I'm going to look it up, It's one of those that I just have a gut reaction every time I get to it when I'm organizing. I'm like, oh, I'm never going to read that. So let's look it up. Okay. First two books are available on Audible. This one is available on Kindle. And I mean, they looked okay. The ratings weren't stellar. It is a completed trilogy. I don't think I would hate it if it was the only fantasy thing I had to read, but I just know myself. I'm never going to pick these up. Or if I do, it'll be like 20 years from now. And I don't want to hang on to things that I have no intention of reading anytime soon. So they're readily available. This one actually, because I have an Audible membership, is free on there as an audiobook. And, you know, like, keeping or getting rid of things based on cover appeal alone is totally acceptable. I've kept things in this project just because I think the covers are pretty. So now I'm letting things go because I think the covers are ugly and I don't want to stare at them anymore. And I was keeping them out of this odd sense of obligation that because it's fantasy and it's hardcover, I have to keep it, but I'm over that. So we're going to let those go. But on the flip side, Empire of Exiles by Aaron Evans. I don't really know a lot about this one, but it's a recent acquisition and it's one that I'm really interested in reading, especially since I saw the cover for the release for the book 2 and probably a book 3 is on its way out. But I know this is one I would like to get to sooner than later. Jennifer Fallon. I have the Tide Lord series here. And as you can see, they are all sorts of messed up formats. Ideally, I would have them all in hardcover. And I thought I was a Jennifer Fallon fan based on her Hyruthian series. I really liked that one back in the day. But then my patrons and I read The Lion of Senate, part of the Second Son trilogy, and it was the single most worst, overdramatic, frustrating thing that I've ever read. I made it halfway through book 2 and just finally threw in the towel, and then continued to open spoilers as my patrons finished out the series, and it didn't get any better. In fact, it got worse. So it scared me out of wanting to read anything by this author. Was that one a fluke? Was she just trying something new? Will I actually like these? I'm not sure. I bet you a couple of chapters into the first book I'd be able to figure it out. So actually, maybe when we go through a second round of all my shelves, I'll start reading like the first couple chapters of some of these to see if I want to keep them. But for sure, do not need a coverless copy of the fourth book. Oh man, and unfortunately for me, it looks like I've already purchased the audiobooks for this series, including this third one. So let's hypothetical that I absolutely love it. I'm going to want to go out and find all of these books in hardcover. So I think I'm safe getting rid of this one, since it's a different format than my ideal, and then I'll hang on to just those two. That seems like a reasonable compromise to me. But see, I have a lot of doubt that I will ever actually pick up anything else by her. But a continuation to the Hyruthian Chronicles, we have the Wolfblade trilogy. I picked up a hardcover because I thought, oh, I like this author enough that eventually I want to read everything in hardback. But I also have the paperback versions, all of which have covers. And so I'm not sure what to do or which ones to keep. This is a relatively decent copy of the hardback, but if I were to read it physically, I would definitely want the paperback version. And it's making me think that my experience with the first trilogy wasn't as good as I thought it was, but I was an early reader. It was probably late teens when I picked it up, and I was a lot more forgiving back then. So I'm worried that if I pick it up now, based on the experience I had with that other series, that I'm just totally going to hate it. Of all the things by her, I am most interested in revisiting this world, and so I think until I know what I'm doing with that one, I'm gonna hang on to both formats because I'm just not sure. Now, the thing, I loved that first trilogy, or so I thought, and this is another one of those stupid things where I didn't continue right away with momentum because I wanted to save it for a rainy day. Like, don't do that, just go with it. Okay, I have this massively heavy box set of the Michael Vey series. I got it on Book Outlet for like 30 or 40 bucks. So for hardcovers, this is great, but they don't fit on this awkward shelf that I have. I've got like kind of a overhang. It doesn't fit, so I've had to just kind of shove it in. I met the author, came into the bookstore that I worked at, and he was a total jerk. So I have been hesitant to pick anything up by him but I would like to give the series a shot at some point, if for nothing else than to justify the fact that I have all these books on my shelves. But he's out of order alphabetically. I'm going to move him back over. There we go. That's not quite as awkward as it was when it was upside down. So keeping those. And then I have something called Dark Life by Cat Falls. Water-based story, middle grade. I am so interested in this one, but I'm not sure if I need to keep a coverless copy of it. But with something like this, it would take me like a day or two to read. I don't know that I would want to go out and buy something. So I think I'm just going to hang on to this because I know I want to read it as basically a reading copy. And then if I like it, I can go get something else more robust. I have what I have not yet read from the Rune Lord series by David Farland. I made it to book 5 and really liked the series. It was so good. If y'all liked Will of the Many by James Islington, he based his magic system around concepts that Farland came up with in this series, kind of the hierarchy thing. Only in this case, like, you can gift different endowments like sight or beauty to those in power willing to pay for it. And so those with the wealth and power have all of these compounded attributes, and it's just an interesting concept. But then there's also these evil creatures in this world, which I thought were particularly fascinating. And the only reason I didn't continue is that I read up to as many books as were out, and then waited so long for the 5th one that by the time it came out, I had already moved on to other things and felt like I needed to reread, as is the case with many things these days. I have Gilded and Silvern by Christina Farley. These are signed and personalized editions, and I just think the author is one of the coolest people I've met. These are beautiful, but I don't think I'm ever going to read them. I think I started the first one. There was like this island that Grandpa's like, don't ever go out to that island. And within the first chapter, she's like, I'm going to go out to that island. Like, I really hate that premise. It's like, I hate stupid characters. I need a compelling reason why you're going to break the rules. And it needs to be more than just like mild curiosity. But see, am I crazy? Is that this book or is that a different book? Because I kind of have like a little bookmark in here. I feel like I read it and then put it down at page 18. But I could be wrong. So am I getting rid of these even though they're like, did I actually read this? I don't know. Ugh, maybe I should look it up. Okay, I just looked it up and I really can't tell. But I'm going to trust my instincts on this one. Even though I think the covers are beautiful and it's so cool that they're personalized, I think these might end up reading a little too young for me. And the thing I cannot stand more than anything else is illogical characters. It's why I have a hard time with Sarah J. Maas's works. It's not that I don't like her stories or her writing. It's the thought process of the characters. It doesn't make sense to me. So, and I also don't think I will, because I had kind of a bad experience with this one, picked it up and put it right down. In an era where I was reading a crap ton of YA, I think I'm okay letting those go. The Sea Trolls by Nancy Farmer. I want to read this. I'm not even interested in looking up reviews. That one just sounds wildly interesting to me. Coverless copy of Strange Relations by Philip Jose Farmer. Another one of these like awesomely horrible Bane covers. I don't think I'll ever get around to picking this up. I kept it because it was weird. And I like weird sci-fi. But do I need a coverless copy on my shelf? Probably not. I'm sure there's a digital component somewhere for this, but I don't care enough to look it up. Gone. And we are looking good. We've got a couple of stacks of unhauls and an empty shelf that we must fill. So I'm going to pull books up from the shelf below and line things up. I need to fill up this shelf before we can call it quits, because when I shift everything, inevitably I don't want to have to start the next episode like in an awkward place right here. So we'll fill it up and then we'll be able to start fresh at the beginning of the next row of shelves next time. So let's pull some books up. Honestly, it felt like I wasn't really making that much progress at first, but we're getting into it now. So I have the only Rift War books by Feist that I haven't read yet, and they're co-written, different authors on each one. We've got Fortune, Joel Rosenberg, and S.M. Sterling, all 3 authors I've heard of. And I really like the subject matter. So we've got one for Jimmy DeHand, and I have it on good authority that these are actually quite good. So eventually I would like to read them. They've got to be better than the end, like 6 books of the Rift War saga. Those were rough. Sanctum and Fractured by Sarah Fine. It was kind of difficult getting a hold of these books in hardcover. I think they are self-published, but I mean, they're in the size and shape of a regular press, so I can't tell, but I need to look this up. I have no idea if I'm going to be interested in these or not. That actually was easier than I thought it would be. So despite the fact that I have these kind of nice hardcover editions, I don't think I'm interested in the subject matter. This girl's friend kills herself, and then she is trying to escape the city to go through the gates of hell to find and save her friend's soul. So, not my thing. Like, I like paranormal, but there are a lot of triggering things about that, and I also, I've had them on my shelves for at least 20 years and have not even paid them a second look in all of that time, so we're gonna let those go. Yeah, I know. I have Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. I probably will not like this book. But I read Angel Fall by Susan E., and that was one of the best YA books I've ever read. And so I'm like, well, maybe I should hang on to some of these things, even though the Fallen Angel thing is really overdone. But I should look this up and see if I should get rid of it. Let me do that real quick. This is like quintessential YA romance. The description doesn't even start with talking about the plot. It starts with like the romance, and this girl wasn't interested in anybody until this guy came along, and suddenly she finds herself in a lot of dangerous situations, and he knows more about her than anybody else. Who should she trust? Blah, blah. Also, the overall plot, good versus evil, it's very simplistic. I don't think there's going to be anything in here to get me through reading a teen romance. And I like teen romance books, don't get me wrong. There are quite a few that I love. I love the one in Graceling by Kristen Cashore. I love the one in Girl of Fire and Thorns. But there were a lot of other elements in those books as well that made it a rounded, rich story, whereas this one screams to me just like basic romance. So even though I curated a nice hardcover of a popular series, hoping that one day I'd get around to it, I think I'm okay to let it go. I have the Lynn Flewelling series, starting with Luck in the Shadows, Night Runner, and the Bone Dolls twin. There was a trilogy that I read with my patrons, or at least the first book, and it was kind of a self-proclaimed gothic fantasy. It was good. It was really triggering for me. I was newly postpartum when I read it, and so it was really not good timing for that kind of book. But it was a good story. I thought the writing was unique. But I have to ask myself, I have not gone back to reading more in that one, even though I'd like to. It was about a 3-star read, and so I would have to finish those before I continued with these, and will I? And the answer is probably not. And if I do, I'm going to do digital copies. So let me see if these are available digitally, and I think that'll soothe my fears about letting them go. Yes, these are available digitally. Whoop. So I have 2 with covers that I'm going to sell, and then I have book 3 without a cover, and this is apparently book 5 without a cover, so I'm going to get rid of those. I would much rather have the space. I really don't think I'm going to get around to them. And if I do, I will go the digital route. But you know, I'm running my library TBR challenge right now, and there are so many books on there that I'm wildly interested in reading. Same thing with my Audible library, same thing with my physical collection. Like, I'll never get around to that. I can admit that. Okay, The Amber Wizard. A friend of mine told me these weren't very good, but I love anything with magic. I have 2 with the cover and 1 without. Knee-jerk reaction, what I've always done is just kept these because I like the concept and I like the covers. But I'm gonna be good and actually look it up. We're gonna be here forever if I don't start keeping stuff. Yeah, I think you guys are going to be proud of me for this one. So I've just been hanging on to it for years, but I think I am beyond the point now where I feel the need to, quote, find out for myself when across the board the masses say it's not worth reading. So there were like 5 reviews in a row with like a 1 or 2 star rating or DNFs where people were like, you know, I was really excited for this one, but it was just so boring and hard to get into. And if you look at it, the first book only has like a couple 100 ratings. The third book, only 87 ratings beyond that. So And they weren't very good ratings even, so the people who stuck with it and are hardcore non-DNFers didn't like it. So instead of hanging on to these longer just to never pick them up because I hear they're not good, oh man, I am gonna let these go. I'm very proud of myself because, yeah, I don't have to find out for myself. The subject matter is not interesting enough for me to overcome that many very specific reviews on why it wasn't good. So we're gonna let that go. I got so many other amazing things to read. I got 1,000 books in here, so we're gonna be good. On the flip side, one I've heard really good things about and am super excited to get to, Engines of Empire and Engines of Chaos. Ooh, cover quote by James Islington. Even better. I'm really excited to read these. It's right in my wheelhouse of types of books that I've been enjoying, and I'm hoping it's going to give me like a Daniel Abraham vibe. So we'll see how it goes, but definitely keeping those. Also published by Shadow Mountain, Adventurers Wanted Slathbog's Gold by M.L. Foreman. Shadow Mountain usually produces really fun young adult series, and I'm not even looking that one up. I know I want to read it. There's a lot of books. Okay, Kate Forsyth has a couple of series, The Witches of Eilonyn, and then the Rhiannon's Ride. I'm probably saying those wrong, but I'm tired. I don't have the capacity to pronounce them or care. Okay, I think one of the most appealing things to me about this right now, even though these don't have covers, is that I have most of them. And I know these are two separate things. This might be a continuation, but even if it's not, like, I'd probably start with these. Every time I've looked them up, they sound interesting enough to hang on to, but I am just more and more leaning towards clearing out the coverless copies from my shelves and just going digital with them, especially the ones that have sat on my shelves for more than 20 years and haven't been touched. Like, I don't see myself prioritizing this over at least half of my collection. So that should be telling. That means that I probably shouldn't be hanging on to it. So let's see if there are digital components. Okay, all 6 books are available on both Audible and Kindle. So I think I am safe letting these physical copies go. It's also like Celtic fantasy, which I'm not a huge fan of Celtic stuff. I rate it right up there with Arthurian lore. I just don't enjoy it. But here's the thing. I added on my wish list the first book of this series for my Audible thing. Maybe if it comes up in a sale at some point, I would pick it up. But my first gut thing was like, you know, if I had to rebuy this, I probably wouldn't, which is a good sign that it's time to let it go. Like, if I wouldn't invest the money to repurchase it, because I'm really not that interested in reading it, I just get all caught up in the collector aspect and the fact that I'd managed to find them all as strips. So yeah, I'm okay with that. Okay, let's look this one up. I'm surprising myself at how many things I'm willing to get rid of during this passive read, burn, hoard, but I'm just sick of hanging on to things that just never get attention. Like, this one is more interesting slightly than the other series was, but I still don't see myself ever picking it up. Like, there was not a spark of description that was like, ooh, I want to read that. So again, just to make it easier to let it go, I marked the audiobook in my wish list that I will never buy, and we're going to say goodbye to those too. I have a random romance book called The Pleasure Exchange by Catherine Fox. There was a point in my life where I was reading a lot of romance books and picking up a bunch of different ones to see what kind I liked. Full disclosure, I almost considered not showing this one because it's kind of embarrassing, right? Like, it's like an erotica novel on my shelves. But I am at the point now where I want a robust adult romance story like Emily Henry. Something that exists strictly for the erotica stuff doesn't really interest me. Like, it's more about the story component. So I think I'm going to let this one go. I've got Diana Farrow Francis, Path of Fate, Path of Blood, Path of Honor. These are books that I have had on my shelves forever. thinking, you know what, I am really gonna like those eventually, but yet I never pick them up. So even though my impulse is to just keep them, every time I've had that impulse so far today and have actually looked it up, I've decided to let it go. So I'm gonna look it up right now. My phone's about to die. Okay, I think we finally found one that's going to make the cut. Basic premise: this woman was ostracized as a child and made to feel not to belong, but then she discovered her affinity for healing and soon found her place in this world, and so she travels to different lands with this like healing guild or whatever. I think that sounds really interesting, and I like the vibes, and so I think even though those don't have covers, I'm gonna hang on to them and eventually hopefully I might pick them up. Of all the random paperbacks that I'm hanging on to, those are the ones that I'm drawn to. Those might actually get read. And I have one called Dragon's Ring. I remember this one having a really good cover, but I don't know much else about it, so let me look it up. By the way, I stopped turning the camera around to talk about each book as I look them up because, oh my gosh, that was just taking way too much effort. I might keep this as a placeholder copy because it does exist as Kindle books. There's 2 books in the series. It's dragon-centric, and it's more bestial dragons, which I tend to prefer. And I don't want to forget about this one. I feel like if I put it on an ebook list, I'll let it alone. But I am on the hunt for even more good dragon books, and I think that one would make a fun experiment at some point. Okay, we have Gray Bastards, which I've read and liked. True Bastards, which I haven't read. And Free Bastards. And I have to say, what sold me on picking up this series was the cover for the self-published version, which I love. I think these covers are hideous. I hate the color schemes. I hate the grayscale. Like, nothing about this is appealing to me. But I liked the first book enough that I'd like to hang on to it. There was a lot of irreverent debauchery and fun and adventure in that one. So I think we're going to keep these for now. And maybe I'll get around to it eventually. And as the next set of books is a massive clump of them, and I only have room for one left over here, I'm going to end it here. Wow. Okay, let's have an overview. Okay, these are all the books that made the cut that we're keeping. Some good titles in here, some that I'm still a little unsure about, but we can always revisit later. And then we've cleared off an entire shelf and almost 2, which is crazy to me considering I didn't get rid of hardly anything from the first 2 shelves. Oh my gosh, folks, we are burning 36 books today. I would have never thought I would be getting rid of this many. And honestly, just looking at them through the screen, I don't think I'm going to miss any of these. Like, I see 1 or 2 that I'm mildly interested in reading, but I've got the digital ones. I don't need to be taking up this much room on my shelves. This is awesome! And even better, not only am I going to be able to fit in all of these, but I'm going to be able to start shifting these books up here. Okay, the last order of business is to go through all of the books to see if there's anything I want to add to this high priority jar. Like, there are things I'm interested here, but nothing that I would call super high priority. Queen of the Blood, that might be one. I would definitely like to read more Malazan books, but I don't think I want it in any sort of random draw poll. Because, like, if you pick a Malazan as your random draw, your life's pretty much destroyed. Let's see. Engines of Empire. That one's definitely getting added to the jar. Yeah, that's it. I think that's the only one I'm adding from this time around. Some close ones, but really ones that I've already experimented with and obviously haven't made my way back to reading more. So I'll add that one in and then we'll call it a day. Filming one of these is exhausting. The decision fatigue alone and having to make up my mind on so many titles, but every single time I finish one, I am always so satisfied at the progress that I'm making. I cannot believe how many books I let go today. It's just proof that I'm living my value set of being more intentional with my time and being realistic with myself on what I think I'll do in the future. Most of these books that I've been hanging on to, I just haven't, I couldn't bear to let them go. I remember doing a Read Burn Hoard for these shelves a couple years ago and just hanging on so tightly to everything just because I took the time to curate them. But a big component of finally being able to let them go is the fact that I have had them on my shelves for so long. They have been time tested, and I have not been interested in picking up any of them. Most of these haven't even made it onto a priority list, and I have quite a few of those. Though we're making good progress, we're doing a great job. I cannot wait to see what my collection looks like once I've gone through this second brutal pass. I think it's going to be great. My ultimate goal is to have only books that I'm super excited for on my shelves. And there were a few that I left on here that I'm not excited to read, but you have to take decluttering in stages. At least I do. Next pass will be easier. I'll get rid of even more. Things that I was on the fence on this time will be clear get rid of next time, especially as I enjoy my collection as it's reduced down to just the best books, or at least the ones I'm most excited for. Anyway, thank you so much for joining with me along on this journey. I hope you're having as much fun as I am, and use this as motivation to look at your shelves and see if there's anything that you're hanging on to that you don't think you'll ever read. Thanks so much. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.